Hello everybody and welcome back to Norwich Talk for a video that I didn't actually expect to be making today or at all in general. We're going to be chatting about Ethan Ampadu. A tweet from Nick Mashiter says that Norwich City are interested in signing him. He's a very exciting player, so my instant reaction was to whip out the camera and swoop in like the transfer owl that I am, and have a little chat about him. Hopefully inform you a little bit more about him as well, because that is sort of the idea behind these videos. I love to give opinions, but I also sort of want to inform you, because I think that sort of helps me back up a case when making a point, which is always an important thing to do. But yeah, we're going to chat about Ethan Ampadu. I literally released a video earlier today, I should mention as well actually, about Ben Gibson and whether Norwich City should be signing him, so if you could check that video out I would be very, very grateful. But as I said, we're here to chat about Ethan Ampadu today, and in the usual format we're going to go through what we know about him and what I think he'll bring to Norwich City, because for me this potential transfer I think signifies what Norwich City might do in this for the remainder of this transfer window and who we might see leave Norwich City, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So we're going to start the video off with what we know about him. So he's 19 years old, he's from Exeter, but he's a Welsh international, and he's a centre-back slash sort of central defensive midfielder, and he's 6 foot. He spent his youth at Exeter, and he played for the under-18s at the age of 14, which is absolutely incredible. He also made his senior debut in the EFL Cup for Exeter at the age of 15. After that, he then signed for Chelsea at the age of 16 on the 1st of July 2017. Now, he was the first player to play for Chelsea in terms of senior football who was born in the 2000s, which is a pretty impressive record for him to hold. He made his Premier League debut on the 12th of December 2017 against Huddersfield. I think he came on like the 80th minute, I read. At the beginning of last season, so the 22nd of July 2019, he was loaned to RB Leipzig, a team who I'm sure we all know about, in terms of sort of being becoming a giant in Germany, a team that often contend for the title, or have done as of late, of course. It is important to mention it is as of late, not sort of throughout history. But he was loaned to RB Leipzig, but overall he played 78 minutes in the Bundesliga for them over the season, and he made 3 appearances in the Champions League. But I've also got written down here he made 7 appearances for RB Leipzig overall, so I can imagine one of them was in a German domestic cup. He's also a current Welsh international. He was called up to the squad at the age of 16, and he's played 13 times for the senior team. Now, this is a signing that does particularly excite me in terms of the fact that this is just stinks of a Stuart Webber signing. This is a very young player who's got a bit of a point to prove, especially given sort of his last season as a footballer, a professional footballer. I think he'll have a lot to prove if he was to join Norwich City, and as I mentioned earlier, it says to me, or I sort of read between the lines in terms of the fact that I think this says a little bit about how Norwich City are probably going to go about the rest of the transfer window in terms of outgoings. We've seen Norwich sort of strengthen this area already in terms of signing Jacob Sorensen. There's a video on him if you want to go and check that out. But for me, this is a very, very exciting player. This is a player who at the age of 14 was playing under-18s football. Now that is admirable, and you know, you look at a footballer who's say 14 years old, physically they should be nowhere near under-18s level, but apparently Ethan Ampadu was, and he's played at that level, and then he's made his senior debut at the age of 15, so he's very highly regarded, and that sort of goes right the way through just before his loan to RB Leipzig, making his debut at the age of 17 against Huddersfield in the Premier League is admirable. I sort of sit here 19 myself, not being able to fathom the idea of playing a game in the Premier League, and given a guy who at the time was 2 years younger played 10 minutes of Premier League football, that it's admirable, and it's a very exciting signing. As I keep saying, I'll probably keep saying that for the rest of the video, but for me the most interesting point and the most interesting thing to look at, bar how I think this will affect Norwich City's transfer business, is that he had a very I don't know what words to describe it as really. He had a very weird season with RB Leipzig. Now, if you exclude the amount of football he played, in terms of on the pitch, in the league, Champions League, whatever, I think training with a club like that and under a new manager and sort of speaking a foreign language, etc., I think that's going to sort of be invaluable experience for him as a person. I think that sort of shows the fact that he probably is quite mature as a person, let alone a footballer. I think that experience will be good for him in terms of developing. I think, you know, you look at Norwich City's setup at the moment, it's sort of run by Germans, and given the fact that he'll be returning from a German club, I think it'll be sort of fairly easy for him to fit in and slide into sort of Daniel Farke's plans for him, whatever they may be, if he's to sign for Norwich City, of course. The thing that I do actually take from it is the fact that he didn't play much football, as I said already. He made 3 appearances in the Bundesliga for RB Leipzig, and he made 3 appearances in the Champions League. Now, I did read that he played quite well against Spurs in the Champions League when they knocked them at the knockout stages, but you look at a player like Ampadu and you think the way that they develop is by playing constant football. At that age, you need to be constantly playing football, playing football matches, because that is where you learn the most valuable lessons. And he's not done that at RB Leipzig, so I think he'll be very hungry to prove a point. There is a few quotes on a few different websites that says he sort of acknowledges the fact that he's not played as much football that he would have liked to have, but at the same time he knows he has to prove himself. And I think this just absolutely fits the bill in terms of a Stuart Webber signing, a player with so much promise, so much potential, and this idea of hunger and desire, because for me, hunger and desire is absolutely going to be what gets Norwich City back in the Premier League next season, and I think there'll be plenty of it within the existing team, but you've got to make sure you bring some more in, and sort of that helps make you a bit more unpredictable as a side, and I think that's very important for Norwich City next season, because we're going to lose this sort of underdog reputation, because as soon as you get relegated from the Premier League, you're often labelled as the favourite to go back up, aren't you? And a player like Ethan Ampadu sort of stinks of a player who will come in and show that desire. Now, for me, this says a lot about how Norwich City are going to sort of go about their transfer business. Now, I know I've said that 3 or 4 times, but I'm now going to go into it in terms of the fact that Norwich have been really, really weak sort of between the attack and defence, especially more between the midfield and defence. Alex Tettey seems to be the only player who's actually very capable of playing sort of the protection of the back four role, and Ampadu is probably going to be a player who comes in and helps fix that. Now, I think what's interesting for me is that I don't think centre-back is really the issue for Norwich City. I think it's just the protection of it, because there hasn't been any of it besides when you play Alex Tettey, of which he provides fairly decent coverage, but at 34 years old he can't sort of play that role week in, week out. And you look at a player like Ethan Ampadu at the age of 19, he's going to have lots of energy in his legs, a lot of charisma in terms of on the pitch, and as I said, he's got a point to prove, so I think he's going to sort of want to play well, of course, and I think, as I said, this means that we'll probably see a fair few centre mids leave Norwich City. You look at players like Mario Vrancic, Tom Tribal, Moritz Leitner, these sort of quarterback type players who just haven't really worked out for whatever reason. Tom Tribal just wasn't good enough for the Premier League. Moritz Leitner, God knows what went on with him, and Mario Vrancic just seems to be out of favour with Daniel Farke, doesn't he? But I tell you what, the prospect of Ethan Ampadu and Jacob Sorensen really, really does excite me, because one thing that I'd constantly said is that the back four wasn't protected enough over last season, and it hasn't really been in general. That's why Norwich City concede a lot of goals, and this sort of signing for me should help sort of bolster that defence. But not only this, this guy comes in with bags of experience for someone who's played so little, which is a bizarre sentence, but I think you can understand in the fact that he's played a lot of international football for a 19-year-old. And Wales aren't a team to be taken lightly, really. They've got quite a lot of quality in there. You look at players like Aaron Ramsey and Gareth Bale, the fact he's sort of in amongst them playing and learning, that can only be sort of a positive for him, and I think it will sort of really rub off on the pitch. Now, for me, overall, this is a very exciting signing. I'm sure you find it very exciting too. I'm very keen to know your thoughts in the comments down below. As ever, if you could like the video as well, subscribe to the YouTube channel, I'll be very, very grateful. Make sure you go and check out my video on Ben Gibson. I really didn't expect to double upload today, but here we are. You could also check us out on Spotify and iTunes, where you can find our mini-series to review, of which there is still one more episode to come. You can also listen to the podcasts on there as well. Big thanks to everyone who does that. I would be very, very grateful. So until next time, we'll see you again very, very soon.